What's up, nation? Two different stories we're talking about today. Both have to do with Nintendo Switch. First off, going with the fact that Nintendo, in their 6th year on the market, we're past 6.5 now. That's hard to believe. The sales out of Japan in this current fiscal year are now outpacing last year's. So yes, the Switch is continuing to do the impossible in 2023. And then the other big talking point for today's video has to do with the 17.0.0 system firmware upgrade and a full explanation of what was actually changed. And spoiler, this is a very minimum one, but I do want to have, once again, a broader conversation on a reality check on where we're actually at within the Nintendo Switch's life cycle and why you probably shouldn't be expecting big overhauls from here until things like next gen. And we need to get on the same page with all of those details right now. Make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on your bell notification if you're new here. And with that, guys, we have to first talk about the Famitsu charts out of Japan, which revealed that Nintendo is actually continuing to sell the Switch at a rapid pace. But not just that, it's actually outpacing fiscal year 2022 at this point in time. As you can see, the following tweet over from Takahashi Mochizuki, which reads, Japanese consumers buy more Switch units so far in fiscal year 2023 than the same period in fiscal year 2022, even though the gadget was released 6 years ago. You can then see the exact figures, which read, so far in fiscal year 2023, Switch has sold 2.28 million units. The same period in fiscal year 2022 was just 2.15 million units. Now, clearly, you would expect a console later on in its life cycle to be slowing down rapidly, and we've seen that with just about every Nintendo system in the past. It really starts to fall off of a cliff anytime around the 4 to 5 year mark. A lot of fans are ready for what is next from Nintendo. Now, clearly, we've seen Nintendo kind of navigate this generation differently than they have in any past because it's a hybrid console for the first time. We've also had a few revisions, if you will, and supplemental models, such as you have the Nintendo Switch Lite, which starts out at just $199 US, a very low entry price and asking point for playing games like Zelda Tears of the Kingdom and major AAA Nintendo games. You can play that on a $200 system. Granted, you are not able to dock it and enjoy it on a bigger display, but you have to stop and realize that a $200 entry point to play all of these top tier games is definitely impressive. You of course have the base model at $300 US, which I do believe is slowing down from Nintendo. We will probably see it ramp back up in terms of its total sales over the holiday period because Nintendo is once again doing the copy-paste Mario Kart 8 Deluxe bundle with a few months of Nintendo Switch Online included, and I truly believe that Nintendo will phase out this inventory of the base system altogether, likely the light models as well. I think that's why we're seeing not only the bundles come back, but the light models are getting Animal Crossing designs for the holiday season. I think this is going to be the last year we see Nintendo push those two particular SKUs at all. Then we will probably see the OLED model really be the Switch that maybe gets a price drop whenever we go to next gen, and it will continue to sell alongside of whatever the true next generation console is. I could see it being discounted to something like $299 like the base model, maybe even $250 if Nintendo wants to go super aggressive with it, and then they come out with that $399 new Nintendo Switch 2, which will no doubt be the market leader because many, including myself, are absolutely ready to upgrade on the Nintendo Switch at this point in time. But I think that all of those statements are fairly safe bets, not to mention that this is actually a good news story, even if you're somebody who really wants Nintendo to pull the trigger and release their new console as soon as possible. These type of continued good news sales momentum is not a bad thing for that conversation, as I really think that Nintendo already has their finalized plan ironed out for when they're going to launch next gen, but they can continue to support this current line of Switch family of consoles longer than we've seen them do in generations past, and that's ultimately good news for the gamers. And I also think that Switch sells alongside of the next gen console for a couple years whenever it is finally brought to market, and now it's just going to be all eyes on Nintendo to see how they navigate this transition, because they don't have the best history with being extremely successful and then following up that success with an even more successful console. So can they break the curse this time around? We will have to wait and see, but no doubt fiscal year 2023 Nintendo Switch sales are still really thriving, especially in the Japanese market. They're thriving worldwide, but there is obviously decline, and Nintendo has been very vocal about them actually struggling to hit their 15 million fiscal year target in terms of unit sales. So things are slowing down, but not necessarily in Japan, as they're actually ramping up. And I think a lot of that really has to do with just Nintendo's broader strategy of all of the various avenues of entertainment that they're tackling, the huge success of the Mario Bros movie, and now all the promotion you're seeing around games like Mario Bros Wonder, in addition to all of the other Mario series ports that we have to look forward to, and Princess Peach Showtime. They're not stopping support for the Switch, which is definitely helping fuel these sales. But I really want to hear from you guys in the comments down below what you think of this newest sales data, and whether or not you think the Switch may have a shot at reaching that best selling console of all time ever when it's all said and done, finally dethroning the PlayStation 2 that has been at the top of that list for all of these years. Now, the other story we're talking about today has to do with the brand new system firmware upgrade that you probably saw hit your Nintendo Switch. You always get a little bit excited when you see a big number change, because historically that means something big, something under the hood may be changed, something is actually added in terms of functionality. We've seen Nintendo over the years add in surprise features like Bluetooth support for your headset. That came out of nowhere. At one point in time, you could not connect Bluetooth headphones to the Nintendo Switch. You can now obviously do that, albeit with some latency here and there, it seems like, but there was some kind of communication issue with the Joy-Cons and what they use and Bluetooth, and Nintendo finally ironed that out, and obviously we can do that now. We then had a big update with folders, or groups rather, in the all software section, which really just felt like a half step to folders. They should have obviously included an option to do it on the main UI screen, but they didn't, and we also haven't seen Nintendo do anything in the way of really changing the UI, which I think would come as a nice welcome addition for anybody that's had a Nintendo Switch for all of these years. Maybe give us 2 rows of icons on the front screen as opposed to just the one, and also give us those customizable themes and let us kind of change around where things are at. Well, I do think that at this point in the Nintendo Switch's life cycle, everybody kind of has to come to the realization that even if you see a giant number switch like 17.00, we are actually not moving forward in terms of any new functionality, and rather Nintendo is probably just patching up some security things, making things more generally stable. As they always say, general system stability seems to be the theme for all of their updates over the last few ones. And 17.00 is no different, and I think when we see Nintendo do giant number changes like this and nothing really changes under the hood that's that notable, well, it's time to start kind of giving up hopes that we may ever get themes or big additions to the functionality of the Switch we have today, and that will all likely be saved for Nintendo Switch 2. But you can first see this following post over from Oatmeal Dome, where he does actually explain everything that was changed within this update, where it reads, Nintendo Switch firmware update 17.0.0 is now out. Pretty much every system component was updated. This is normal for major updates, as the entire OS is rebuilt with a newer SDK version. It'll probably take a bit for those smarter than me to investigate the exact changes. Other than that, here's what I can obviously see. New error code messages were added, various home menu messages were changed, a bunch of its GUI files were also changed for whatever reason, time zone data was updated, and it also appears that the dock was in some way, shape, or form updated. No, it's not a graphics patch, it's not giving your dock more power, it's not going to do really anything notable in terms of really your end user experience, other than some under the hood changes that only Nintendo knows why they really did this. Are they patching some kind of security fix that we don't know about, that they're not going to say anything about? It's entirely possible, but I do find it interesting on how they decide to brand their system updates now that we are in this point of 16.0.3, I think was the last one before this, and we're jumping all the way to 17. What the rhyme or reason is for the number system with this, I don't think you can really pin down to any logical solution, so just kind of write it off, realize that we are in the tail end of the Nintendo Switch's life cycle, and really what we have today in terms of functionality will likely be what we sunset this console with. And while we still have hopes for that theme section to one day have something other than a light or a dark theme, I think Nintendo would have done that by now if they had any plans to do so. Maybe it was on the table at one point in time, and for whatever reason they decided that the system resources wouldn't handle it that well, or they just didn't want to put in the work to do it. But I really think that Nintendo Switch 2 needs to come out of the gate hard with a lot of different custom themes, maybe have live dynamic ones, and even if Nintendo wants to sell them in the eShop for like $1.99, when you're hyping up a brand new game and you want to get super excited about its release, I would love to have a custom theme that has some dynamic visuals in the background to get me hyped about that game that's about to be here, or if I just got it, it just reminds me to hop into that game each time, and it's really a cool customization thing that we've seen Nintendo do in the past with the DS and 3DS, so it doesn't make sense to me at all that it's not here in the Switch's life cycle, but I do think that we have to for sure realize that nothing notable will come of all these updates. So when you see a big system update hit for Nintendo, even if there's a big number switch from here on the Nintendo Switch, don't set your expectations that high. But that's really where I want to hear from you guys at this point in the video, both the different stories we talked about today. What do you think Nintendo is doing with these system updates, and do you find them interesting or just boring at this point in time? Do you think there's more under the hood stuff that maybe hasn't been found yet, that Nintendo is actually making more noticeable changes than what we can see on the surface? And are you like me and you think that there's probably no shot that we have of them updating this system with any notable new functionality until something like next gen? Or do you think that Nintendo at the fourth quarter, at the end of the life of this thing, can actually come through and add some big features that fans have been asking for? And definitely let me know how you feel about the continued momentum of the Nintendo Switch, specifically within Japan, and do you think it falls off of a cliff from here, or can Nintendo maintain their momentum all the way through to the launch of their next-gen system? So regardless of your thoughts and feelings on everything we talked about today, I do look forward to hearing from you all in the comments down below before you leave the video, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around these topics. Go watch yesterday's video next if you haven't already, which is on screen right now. Also make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.